And we're live, Jason. We're back for another OFT live chat. I'm your host, Robert Palin. If you don't know me and haven't checked out the live show, or the main show, sorry, this is the live show. We do a main show, a Tuesday show every week, but we like to come here live on a Thursday and chat with you people in the chat. Hopefully there's people in there. And I'm usually joined by this man. You might recognise his voice, you might not recognise his face, depending on how much you watch his channel. But it's Jason from MMA on Point, Jason Hartley. How's it going, man? How are you?
Man, it's going good. Been kind of a interesting day. It feels like there's a lot of news that's been kind of coming in. It's all about the same things, essentially. But like Dana White was on ESPN earlier today. You heard about Khabib being on TMZ. So it's been a really interesting, almost roller coaster like 24 hours. And it's going to be even crazier in the next 24, I imagine, especially with this press conference coming up. So we have no idea what we're going to hear. But, yeah. Crazy stuff ahead.
Yeah. If you're tuning in now, this is the best time to tune into this because the press conference hasn't happened yet. But this gives us a good opportunity to touch on some other news topics that are just going to be flattened by the press conference, because in about 3 hours' time, 2.5 hours' time, all the news will be about the UFC 229 press conference. So we can give some speculation. We won't go too deep into it because, again, this won't be valid or it won't be any use in 2.5 hours' time. So we can talk about Jon Jones, because Jon Jones might be back very, very soon. A lot of people think he might headline the UFC 230 card. Dana White actually said he won't, but, you can't really trust Dana White. We can talk about his suspension, or maybe his lack thereof suspension from USADA. And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about in the chat, because as I always say, this is all on you. If this show isn't good, it's on the people in the chat. Don't blame me. If the questions aren't good, what can we do? But let's start with the press conference, because as I said, that's in the title and that's what the big news is. We talked about this last week. But what are your expectations now for the press conference? It's just a little under 2 hours away.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a wild card, seeing all these pictures of people being in Times Square and showing exactly where it's going to be. I'm not sure who it was that took the picture. It might have been Ariel Helwani, but somebody basically took a picture of Times Square where it's going to be, and it's going to be actually pretty big outside. I'm wondering if maybe perhaps we're underestimating how great that could be, and maybe they'll even feed some of that audio into it, and that would make it a whole lot better if they feed some of that outdoor audio into it and hearing people's reaction outsid, because then it would be almost like simulated as if they were inside there, and at least you get those reactions. Yeah, there you go. But if they run it like a normal press conference, like a post-fight press conference, I think it'll be all right. Like, I think it'll be okay, because most of the time when you watch a post-fight press conference, that's essentially just media and UFC personnel and whoever has to be there.
Yeah.
They don't let fans into that, and those are usually great. Especially, like, I kind of miss the old format where it was everybody was on the podium at the same time.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And now it's just yeah. And it seems to kind of work on like bigger fights to have everything separated. But I would prefer on 90% of the fights, if it's Conor, he needs to be separate, after a fight, because then he's going to be the only one getting questions. But that's just kind of a side note. So my expectation is, despite the fact that it appears that, McGregor was bluffing a bit about whether or not this was going to be, open to the public, and all he had to do was bring some of his new Irish whiskey. I think that's clearly not true. Like 99% sure that he was just kind of bluffing there. But I think despite all that, I think it's going to be a good press conference. I've got some high expectations for it, perhaps unduly so. But at this point, I think it's going to be some vintage McGregor, and I think Khabib's he's already fired up about the Jon Jones stuff. He's already kind of pissed off. I think we're going to be hearing a lot from Khabib as well.
I think the really cool thing for me, and I don't know if you feel this way, but we spoke about this, I think it was three or 4 weeks ago, when it was almost radio silent from these guys. We didn't hear anything from them. And I really feel now the anticipation to see these two face off. I think it's worked. I think just not having them do any media, and I would not be surprised if Dana White or whoever's running the promotion, of course it should be Dana White, he's the promoter, but whoever's running this promotion, and of course Conor will have a big piece of that, made this decision to say, let's not do anything until this date comes. Because I'm excited now. I'm really, really excited. And maybe I wouldn't be quite as excited if, you know, Conor was on some show and Khabib was on some show and they already said some things about what they could potentially... Because there's so many questions now going into this one. Of course, the big one is the dolly. What's Conor going to say about the dolly? Someone's going to ask him about it. And he has to give the legit answer of what happened then. We know what happened. He threw a dolly through a bus. It's clear. But... You know, I just feel that what has happened and the kind of build up to this, we haven't seen them together, and they are like promoting it with the first time ever the face off between Khabib, and it's good. It is good. This is good promotion. I like it. So I'm actually really, really excited. I think it's worked.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it'll be just kind of a wild card to see how they are without having those fans in front of them. But again, you know, we've seen it a million times with pre-fight press conferences as well, where it's essentially just the media. Radio City Hall is kind of a big place, so it just kind of depends on how well they mic that room, because that was the thing that sucked, and it's kind of a silly thing, but the Mayweather-McGregor last press conference that they had all those, you know, all the media spread out, and it just sounded like there was crickets. You know, you would hear something where you're like, oh, that sounded like it was a pretty good zing, but nobody's responding. It's not really the best atmosphere. So as long as you actually like hearing reactions and stuff like that, and it's kind of weird. It's almost like an outdated sitcom approach to like, but the reaction and the fans and how they get from it, that energy, I feel like they feed off of it. It's like a rock concert, you know, you see the people on stage feeding from the fans and the fans feeding from them. So it's kind of all a part of the entertainment. So as long as you're still hearing reactions and, you know, like genuinely, you know, it just doesn't sound like crickets and the most boring thing ever. And it sounds like they're in some sterile box of a room and all their statements are going into some vacuum. I think it'd be good as long as you hear some sort of reaction from the people in the room, that kind of thing. Speaking of the people in the room, I'm going to get into this chat because there is some questions and comments. Before I do that, if people can go and retweet our tweet, talk_fight, that really helps out, or even retweet whatever I tweeted, if I even tweeted, I'm not sure. And also check us out on Facebook, and you can share the post that we put up about this and give it a share everywhere else that you want, because it's always better when there's more people in here. Moy's Audio's in the chat. Moy's Audio said Jason from Music City? Question mark. Yeah, I responded to him in the chat. I'm not sure what he meant by that because I'm from Nashville, Music City. So maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. But yes, if that's the case. Interesting. Joran Manuel said, "What's up, Robber?" And he said, "Have you guys tried Proper number 12 Irish whiskey, the new product from Conor McGregor?" You know what? I'd be up for it. I'd try it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I was thinking about this last night because one of my roommates, he had his birthday in the past, 48 hours. So he's been going out and hanging out with different people. And when he came back, you know, it was kind of like a joke to ask, was the beer good? No one ever cares if the beer was good, you know? So that's kind of just a side note to say alcohol is alcohol. I don't really care what it tastes like. Does it have the right effect? Of course it does, you know. So I'm a bit of a hipster when it comes to alcohol, so I disagree. But I haven't tried it. I want to try it. You're telling me if somebody offered you a PBR, you wouldn't just take that? No, I don't mind that. But like a Heineken or like a Budweiser, not a big fan. Don't really like it. MGD, is that a thing there? What is it? MGD. It's like a 40 ounce is what it is. One of those massive bottles. I don't know. It tastes like dog shit. Okay. Or Mad Dog is another good one. They both taste awful, but I don't care. It's beer, so I'm down. Somebody's an alcoholic. And it's not the Irish. I swear I never drink. Yeah. No, I haven't tried it, but Noel, who is the host of the main show, one of the hosts, he bought a bottle today on the way over to Abu Dhabi. He's actually in Abu Dhabi. Oh, nice. He's calling Brave FC 13 or whatever it is tomorrow night. You can check that out as well. He's going to try it. I have a friend who works in an off license, and he's a big whiskey fan, huge whiskey fan. And anytime I go around to his house, he has a new bottle of whiskey, and not the cheap stuff, the really good stuff. So he's going to buy it, I guess, and I'll just bum it off him. I'll see what it tastes like, and then maybe I'll buy it. How much is a really good bottle of whiskey? €60 maybe. You probably get a decent one. So what's that, like $70? If it's euro? Yeah. You guys don't use pounds? No. Euro's less than the dollar.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it would be
so 70.
It would be somewhere around 50 here.
Oh, sorry, yes. It's less valuable
or maybe
than the dollar.
55, but
Yeah, around there. So I haven't tried it. Tony J. Wood said, I'm not missing this bloody week podcast. Who do you think Dana wants to win? Serious question.
Oh, I think if you are a promoter and you're going in wanting somebody to win, I think that's just a bad recipe for being a promoter. You probably hate your job and want to quit because you'd be sabotaged every single time there's a fight, you know?
Yeah.
It's like CM Punk would be the biggest cash cow now if he won his 2 fights. If you worked it that way, you know, if you really cared. I think sometimes obviously he cares, like Ronda Rousey, Chuck Liddell losing. I think he really cared about those, and he said as much. And obviously, Conor McGregor is better for business. Like, I think Khabib is good for business, but Conor is – no one's ever come close to that guy. Not even close. You know, UFC 223, what did it sell? Like under 200,000 buys, somewhere around 200,000 buys at best. There's just no comparison. And obviously that card was wrecked. You know, it would have been a lot different if it was him versus Ferguson or even Holloway like it was supposed to be at one point or another. But, if we're going to go from what's good for business, I'll put it that way. I don't know if Dana White's just like, Conor's got to win. I think what's good for business, though, is obviously Conor winning. Yeah.
I think that's the right answer. Like, if you are the owner of a business and one outcome is clearly the better business decision in terms of possible revenue and that kind of stuff, like, of course deep down you're going to think, okay, that's the one I want. But I think for a promoter, like you said, they kind of have to train themselves not to think that way. And I think someone as experienced as Dana, I guess he's at that point now where he just has to train himself, okay, I can't think that way because if I do, it's going to kill me. So deep down I think Conor, but outwardly, and even what he'll tell himself is, I don't care. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you're building yourself up for hoping somebody will win and you're a fight promoter, that doesn't go together. It just doesn't. It's like Roger Huerta was the first guy on Sports Illustrated. He's fighting this weekend in Bellator, you know? And look where his career is at now. You know, if you would have really banked on a guy like that, and how many times does that happen? That's probably one of the most famous cases. It just doesn't work out for you. It's a bad recipe to be like super invested in who wins a fight if you are a promoter.
Yeah. And give your take on all these questions as well in the chat, and we'll try to read them out as we go down because you might have a different take and it might be interesting. Corey Smith, everyone on the card are just Conor and Khabib at the presser. I believe it's just Conor and Khabib, right?
It's just them two.
Just them two.
Yeah. It's just smart because anybody else, like, I don't care who it is, unless you're Nate Diaz or Jon Jones right now, no one else is getting questions on that podium if they decided to do that. Yeah. So I think it's definitely the right call.
That actually brings me back to something that you spoke about a few minutes ago about having everybody on the dais at a press conference, which was good, but there was moments where you had some guy sitting there getting asked no questions, and it was kind of awkward. And it was kind of bad on him because he might have been through a really grueling fight and he's just sitting there with like a black eye, just sweating, just wanting to get out of there, and no questions come at him. So that's probably... Or
you're Tumanov and they think you're Robbie Lawler. I don't know if you ever saw that clip.
I don't know. I don't think I did.
You could tell the guy was new to like being media.
Oh, geez.
And he was like, oh, hey, Robbie. He was like, sounded like super nervous like that. Yeah. And he was like, how was your fight? And then Dana White's like, wait, what? What's going on? Oh, you thought he was Robbie Lawler? And it was Tumanov. And he was wearing like a beanie and he had like a beard that, to his credit, kind of looked like Robbie Lawler if you're like 40 feet away, which maybe the guy was. But yeah, you guys should definitely look that up. It's like Tumanov being mistaken for Robbie Lawler is the greatest blunder in MMA press conference history.
That is absolutely hilarious.
So awkward.
What
like Tumanov's just like sitting there just looking around like, what? Because he's Russian. He doesn't even know what he's saying. He doesn't even realize he's got a question directed at him.
I might try to get that up in a few minutes if I remember, because that's absolutely hilarious.
It's so good.
That's amazing. Yeah, someone said just Conor and Khabib. Tony J. Wood said Anthony Joshua and Conor McGregor press conference in one day. Happy days. Didn't even know there was an Anthony Joshua press conference today. Did you?
He's fighting Alexander. I can't think of. I don't really follow boxing, to be honest with you. But I was actually watching a little bit about that earlier. Just by happenstance, I was like, oh shit, he's fighting this weekend. Yeah. But was it 22nd? So yeah, Saturday.
Wow, that's insane.
He's a massive star, man. Doesn't get much bigger than that.
Yeah, no, I like Anthony Joshua. Farrell Connolly is in the chat. Will Monster Energy be at the press conference tonight? Laughing face.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt Khabib's going to get up and say, hey, fuck your team. How about that? I doubt that's going to go down.
Well, how funny would that be?
That would be crazy.
Yeah, in his accent as well. Hysterical.
Your team is number one bullshit. How about that?
Yeah. That's so funny. Pompous Psycho, just moving away from the presser for a little bit, and we can talk about Jon Jones. If a fighter fights only once per year, like many do, how is a 15-month suspension actually a punishment? So that brings us into the Jon Jones discussion. Jon Jones got 15 months for his failed drug test, which was apparently ruled by USADA to be a failed drug test, but not intentionally cheating, according to what I've read. So he got a 15-month suspension, which dates back to when he was suspended. So essentially he can fight in October. Isn't it late October?
October 28th.
Yeah, so late October. So he gets 15 months. So what's your thoughts on that? Is that really a suspension? Does the punishment fit the crime?
Well, it's like yes and no, because he's messed up so many times. I mean, let's not forget, he was the first UFC fighter to be sponsored by Nike.
Yeah.
The first, at least American. Maybe, I want to say maybe it was Junior Gigano dos Santos that got it first. Because I remember he wore that in the second Cain Velasquez fight, I want to say. And then he famously lost. And it almost seems like whenever somebody had like a wardrobe change back then that they would lose. Like I swear, like there was like the slightest change on Anderson Silva's shorts before he lost to Weidman for the first time. It's like weird little shit like that. It's almost like a lucky rabbit's foot type kind of thing. But it's like for Jon Jones, it's questionable over the last year. How much did he lose? The year before that, he lost a lot more. So it's like all those sponsorships, all those outside deals was kind of like tertiary things going on the outside. I think they've almost been siphoned off completely. And then whatever he did have left, he did lose. And then obviously he lost the belt. So there is that. And of course, the ability to fight again. And perhaps he could be in DC shoes right now, although he wasn't really keen on the idea of fighting Stipe. He kind of was like, no, I want to fight Brock. That's the kind of stuff he was saying. So it's really hard to say, but from my vantage point, he definitely did lose some stuff. And because he's done it so many times, he's had so many of these trip ups now, it's not as bad as it used to be. But I mean, definitely for a general fighter, you basically lose all your sponsorships and you have a lot to lose. But in his case, he'd fallen down the line so far, you know what I mean? That it's like his sponsorships were practically gone anyway. So in his case, he didn't have nearly as much to lose as the average person, but he did lose the biggest thing probably in the title. So there is that.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't really know the answer to that one, to be honest. We spoke about this many weeks about USADA and I guess their failings, and I know Luke Thomas has a very strong opinion on USADA, and I watched his video today. I can't pretend to be as clued into the whole USADA and drug testing process as him or as anybody else, so I'm not going to go on a rant about that. And even you've read probably way more material about the whole process than I have. But I suppose it's the tricky part is when you start comparing to other fighters and what they got. And it seems like a lot of fighters got more for less than what Jon Jones did. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, we were talking about that right before we were getting on here. Like Machida got 2 years for 7 keto. Yeah, Machida. He got 7 it was 7 keto DHEA. He got 2 years off for that. And DHEA, it gets a little bit confusing because DHEA does have some influences on testosterone, but 7 keto DHEA is an entirely different thing altogether. And even DHEA in itself is seen as a mild and almost like the way it was described from anything you read about this, like Bloody Elbow did an excellent article on it. It's a mild performance enhancer at best. You know what I mean? And he got 2 years for that. Jon Jones took T-ball. That was what is in his system. And this is something that's been known since like the 50s and 60s as a performance enhancer. You know, it's kind of like the old school way of cheating back in the day before they even had tests and they started discovering it. It's like, oh, and then you find out the history. Oh, it's been going on for all this time. So it's like there's obviously a huge difference between 7-keto DHEA and then there's Josh Barnett, where he basically went through 18 months of court proceedings with USADA and he was innocent.
Yeah.
Like everything he was cleared of. And I'm not even sure if he got his money back for all those, you know, kind of court hearings and the arbitration cases. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm on the verge. I don't know. Sometimes I'll like throw ideas out there and I don't necessarily follow through with it. But I think this Sunday I'm going to make a video titled "Is Jon Jones' Case an Indictment on USADA?" And it's going to really require some deep diving between now and then on some of this stuff. But, I mean, it does look really bad, you know? It looks awful.
Yeah, a lot of people are upset about it. I can see in the chat, some people anyway. But it wasn't like Russia or something, the Russian thing reinstated as well today or yesterday or whatever it was.
Oh my God. Yeah. And if you guys have seen, it wasn't Icarus. What was the name of that documentary? It was Gregory Probovich or something crazy like that. But the guy that was ahead of RUSADA. So we have USADA, they have RUSADA, you know, the Russian. So it's a WADA lab. And so what WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency. So basically they're the liaison for the Olympics. And so all the stuff that happens with Russia in the Olympics, they were basically sneaking out the samples to literally, it's not called the KGB anymore, but whatever the new KGB name is, they were literally like, it was the buildings were across from each other. They were sneaking out the samples, taking them out and swapping it with piss takes that people took clean like a month prior to that. And then they were testing that. And it was literally everyone on the Russian team almost was cheating. And, that should have got them out of the Olympics. They still got to go under kind of like an independent status. It was like a weird thing, but they're already reinstated. And it was literally basically everyone. They didn't fall out their full term or anything of what they were supposed to serve. So it just kind of say, and I mean, we've seen all these kind of scandals with the Olympics in the past, just kind of say like something about the state of drug testing and how ineffectual it really is at the end of the day.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's insane what they done and how they got away with it when they were trying. In Icarus, when they were actually shown how it happened and what they were doing, it's just like, oh my God, like the process they done to get through this is insane.
Scientific, man. Yeah, like they were going in and they were making it undetectable until finally someone pointed it out and they could see the small little scratches on the inside of the A and B samples. It's just the most insane thing. So crazy.
Yeah. Harry Dunn said, did anybody bring up Dana saying UFC 229 is trending to make 2.5 million pay-per-view buys? Yeah,
I saw that on ESPN earlier today. Wow. He said that when he was talking to Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. If you guys, no one's going to be familiar with Enron, but there's a crazy good documentary about Enron called The Smartest Guys in the Room. And they used to do something called that was market to marketing. And what they would literally do is they would say, oh, we think we'll make this much. And they would post that as their actual profits. Yeah. And it wasn't true at all. They were like a black box the entire time. They weren't making any money. And so within the time it got found out what they were doing, literally in 24 hours, Enron was closed. They were like seen as titans of industry. They were in Forbes, like top 10, businesses, like around like the early 2000s. And obviously this isn't that extreme, but it feels kind of like that. It's like you're saying something, so you're hoping it's going to be true. It's like 2.5 million. And believe me, I want that to happen. I think as fight fans, we all want to see a massive fight happen because,
Absolutely.
we know what it's like to be MMA fans and see it grow from being kind of this bastard sport at the beginning, with it being illegal in all these different states and Australia not legalizing it, Canada not legalizing it, and it just kind of being seen as kind of like a second class sport, even in the UK now. So it's like one of these kind of things where I think we're all very, very happy to see it do that well. But we know Dana White as well on the other side of that. And it feels like the market to marketing thing from Enron, where he's just like, oh, yeah, we're just going to say it's going to do 2.5 and maybe that'll work. And maybe people will just believe that and they'll buy into the hype and start buying it themselves.
Why not?
If they weren't planning on it.
Just project it into existence. Just do it.
Hey, if it works, I'm down.
If it works, it works. This chat is going to have 200 viewers in 10 minutes. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Projected into existence.
There you go.
Yeah.
2.5 viewers.
Yeah. So guys, come on, let's prove people and let's get this going. Now, I wouldn't be 100% surprised if it did do something crazy like that, because I truly think once this fight comes around, once fight week comes around, people are going to be going insane for it. But I don't know. 2.5 million pay-per-view buys is a lot, so I don't know. We haven't got close to that in MMA yet, so.
Well, dude, the reaction to the Khabib video that we put up on Monday has just been crazy good.
Yeah. And that's Khabib.
Yeah, that's Khabib. He's the lesser known side of that equation by far. And I mean, that is a pretty strong indication, It's like we're getting numbers like we were getting during May Mac last year when we were starting up,
Here's a question, just based on the views that you get, because you obviously get like insanely big views, but
literally hundreds of views.
Hundreds of views.
Literally.
Yeah. But have you seen a correlation between pay-per-view buys and views in videos? It might be direct, but does it kind of give it a bit of an indication for you?
I don't think that we've had enough of a sample size, if you were to talk about it from like a statistical kind of point of view. It felt like that would be the case for not Jon Jones, but Daniel Cormier versus Stipe, but it didn't translate to that in numbers at all, which is why I think it was such a big shock. It felt like it was going to be at least around that 800,000 to maybe even over 1 million type kind of thing by any of the standards, and we don't really have any sophisticated way of measuring that, but it felt like a big fight, but we didn't see that. None of that came through. So it's really hard to tell, and it's super confusing. I think people are scrambling for answers and they're jumping to kind of like the first thing that jumps to their minds. But really, I don't think any of us know why pay-per-views haven't been selling well that should have. You know what I mean?
And I wonder what Dana White looks at. I'm sure they have some kind of some data that they follow to try track this, but I guess it's not a science. I don't see how it can be a science because every fight is different and stuff. So difficult to say. I don't know what that says. I think it says RZ Beats official. It's a YouTube channel, I guess. Do you see McGregor pissing Khabib off during the press conference?
So here's the one thing about Khabib that I was just kind of thinking about and just kind of mulling over. So Khabib comes from a very prideful background, being in Dagestan, known for being these tough guys, known for wrestling a bear as a child.
You can't say that without laughing.
Yeah, you can't. I was about to say that as a serious statement. I was like, wait, that's crazy that I just said that, and it's actually true.
Especially if people don't know that. And you just brushed over. It's like, known for wrestling bears, and just continued. You're
like, what?
Yeah,
that happens. And then there's the part, I talked about this in my video actually, where he had a kid the night he fought Edson Barboza. Yeah. He had a son, and it happened at 2 a.m. and he's talking to Ariel Wani, and Ariel Wani's like, did you feel bad that you weren't there with your wife? Because she was still back in Dagestan. And he actually kind of smiled, and he's like, different mentality. Yeah. And I think, to kind of tie this back in, I think there's a little bit of pride on his part of being kind of this over-the-top tough guy. And I'm not like saying that there's cracks there, but if there is, it would be in chipping away at that pride. That's what I would think. If he can somehow make Khabib feel embarrassed about his masculinity. And that's just, I mean, like, it's like, oh man, this is really going back into the well. But it was Roberto Duran versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Wow. So this is going back to the 70s.
Deep cut.
Yeah. And if you guys have ever seen the 30 for 30 that ESPN did called No Moss, it's one of the best fight documentaries, period. I don't care if you've watched one boxing match in your entire life. It is worth the watch because this is obvious. Yeah, that's the only one you see. Roberto Duran in their second fight, just out of nowhere, just quit.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of like denied it for the rest of his career. So that's kind of what it's centered around. But they talked about the first fight, and Roberto Duran won that fight. And I might be wrong about this, but I believe that Sugar Ray Leonard was actually undefeated at that point. He was kind of this guy in the Wheaties boxes. He was kind of this guy that was like the face of boxing at that point, guy with a great smile, really charismatic, and just an incredible boxer. And what Roberto Duran did is he got in his head and he started he got real down and dirty. Like he was like yelling at Sugar Ray Leonard's wife and like saying like really, really nasty stuff to her and talking about how she was going to beat up his man and she needs to leave him and all this like crazy, crazy stuff. And it's kind of this, I wouldn't consider Sugar Ray Leonard anywhere near as prideful about his masculinity, like to somebody like Khabib. But I do think there's something there to say that even someone who's kind of chill about that can be affected in that way, to feel like he's being attacked as a man. And I think we're all like that, right? Like we all have pride in our jobs and who we are. And I think to an even higher degree, Khabib's like that. And if you can somehow tap into that, the question is that even possible? As far as we know, he's just a stone-faced killer, as far as we know. But when you see the kind of like things he does, I mean, you see him like smiling as he's talking to Ariel Wani about how he wasn't there when his wife had a kid because he's just this tough guy. Like that's basically what he's telling you. He's like, nope, I'm this crazy tough guy. Just go on doing what I do. And you can make fun of that in some ways, but you can also be like, wow, that dude's insane. He's that focused.
That's cool. Yeah, so that's actually interesting. That's interesting because if you remember, one of the only shots that Conor has taken at Khabib / the Khabib camp was at his dad when his dad looked a little bit scared in the bus. So I think you might be onto something. Start calling him out and calling him like basically called him a wimp of some sort on Instagram. So maybe like Conor has picked up on that as well, and that's kind of the angle that he's going for, because he always has some kind of angle of mental warfare going into these fights, and maybe that's the one. Maybe it's the whole prideful masculinity thing that Khabib seems to have, I guess.
Yeah, like can you make him feel, I mean, it's essentially going to fall in the category of embarrassment. Sure. Is what I feel like. Can you make him feel embarrassed and make him feel like he's being perceived as less of a man? Yeah. Like if you can do that, like, I don't know if anyone can. I don't, there's no indication that he can, but if he can, I think that's what he's going to go after. Yeah. And I think part of going after his dad is part of that, because then that's his lineage. That's very embedded into how Khabib sees himself as this reflection of his dad, who was, in the Ukrainian army, who was also the Sambo champion, who was also this judo champion. So there's no indication that Conor McGregor can, but I would say if there's anywhere to go after, it's like go after what somebody prides themselves in the most. And if you can turn that pride into embarrassment, ooh, that's some deep shit right there. That's crazy. Shit. Yeah.
So here's the prediction. Rough. Conor goes after his masculinity at the press conference. Prediction number 1. A compliment and then an insult for you, Jason. Sure. First one was a compliment, was at the start of the chat. I missed this one, but Joran Manuel said the Khabib video was decent, Jason. The Khabib video was decent.
Does decent? So sometimes I hear people say decent, and that just means it was decent. No. But other places, like outside of America, decent actually means good.
Exactly. In Ireland, if I said something was decent, that's good. If I was like, I'll take a drink. This is gonna tie into the next comment, which was the insult. If I take a drink of a nice beer and I go, that's decent, that means it's good. So going on to the other one, I'm pretty sure the same guy said Americans have terrible taste in beer. basically.
Well, let's be clear. I am zero. Like, I'm not an indication whatsoever or a litmus test of what American drinkers are like. I drink super rare. I drink socially, and that's about it. And it's rare even then. Like, I drank Tuesday with a bunch of friends playing music and stuff. And I did that the week before, and that was a lot for me. I don't drink. Like, in college, I drank a lot more, but I don't really drink.
For an Irishman, I guess the general consensus from people is that we drink a lot, but I don't drink a whole lot either. I drink maybe twice a month or something. But if I do drink, I'll go and I'll drink. I will have a good few drinks, like.
I'm going to be trashed at 229. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. But that's like a rare thing for me.
On two beers.
Yeah, 2 beers. I'll wait until after the fights to really get trashed, because I definitely want to like soak that in. But I'll definitely like be on the heavily buzzed end of the equation. So
great stuff. Everybody, let us know what your favorite beer is in the chat so we can get some recommendations. That'd be awesome.
That's great.
Give Jason some tips.
And have you tried number 12 yet?
Yeah, and have you tried number 12? The same guy, he's on a roll. Duran Manuel said, would you rather listen to Tyron's new track twice or get your balls chewed on by raving piranhas?
Oh, the new track is bad.
It's not great,
it just is. Like the phrasing that he's rapping in, and
it's not great.
I don't rap, but I am a drummer, so like rhythm is like my thing, and like you're like kind of hearing him. He's kind of struggling with the rhythm, and this is after it's doctored. It's been through post-production. They've gone through all the little facets to try to clean it up, and it still sounds like he's struggling with phrasing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's rough.
Wait.
It's awkward.
You can't say I don't know when the other option is your balls being chewed on by raving piranhas. Of course, I'd listen to Tyron Woodley's track twice.
Well, yeah.
But it's not great now. It really, and I like rap. It is not great.
Yeah, absolutely. Not great. Yeah.
Okay, let me get another one. Robert, I'm answering all his questions. Manuel said, Robert, what are your thoughts on Jones snitching? Did you see this?
I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. So people criticize Jon Jones for being, and actually you said you watched the Luke Thomas thing as well earlier today. And I think Luke Thomas hit the nail on the head here.
I agree with him.
You criticize people for getting popped on whatever it is, any sort of banned substance. You criticize them and you're like, oh yeah, they fucked up. And you're against PEDs. And the moment someone snitches, you're like, oh yeah, we're back in the hood all of a sudden. You can't snitch. Like, what the fuck? Like, you either hate PEDs or you don't.
Yeah,
if you hate PEDs, then why the fuck are you mad about a snitch? That's like, if he really like did something that's impactful, you should actually be happy about that. Maybe not be happy about how little time he got, but you should be happy that someone else is being apprehended that's, dirtying up the sport, and you're super against PEDs in the sport. So, and snitching is kind of stupid anyway. It's like people are fucking up doing awful shit, and you're like, oh, don't tell on them. They robbed from my friends. Don't tell on them. Like, no, that's some dumb, like, you don't have money. You live in the slums somewhere, and you don't understand that criminality is bad. And that's why you snitch, so that people don't steal from you. It's one thing if you're snitching about weed. I don't give a fuck about weed. But the people are doing fucked up shit, and you're like, oh, you snitched on them? You're dumb. Yeah. I mean that in the nicest way possible.
I agree.
You're very stupid.
I think what Luke said in his video was pretty much on the point of what I felt as well. Johnsky once said Conor was taken down twice by a really short and old, late 30s in brackets at the time, Dennis Seaver in the first round. So I guess he means, why won't he be taken down by Khabib, and what's different?
Well, what I would recommend is watching BJJ Scout's kind of assessments. And BJJ Scout has done more actual videos on Khabib, so don't think of him as just some crazy Conor fan. But he went back into actually the Seaver fight and talked about how his progression changed. And one of the big things he talked about is whenever he used to get somebody against the cage, he would just kind of wildly attack. And he would just kind of go for broke and try to finish the fight type kind of thing. And that's how he would get a lot of takedowns. And he even did that a little bit against Chad Mendes. And so one thing that you'll see him do now, and you really saw in the Alvarez fight, is when he gets somebody there, he won't start going hyper aggressive. He'll wait and set up that left hand and go after you. And that's what you saw in that fight. And I'm not saying Eddie Alvarez was the best Eddie Alvarez is in that fight. He definitely wasn't. But you can actually see, and when it's pointed out to you, you realize that Conor McGregor's, like, his entire game plan around people that will try to take you down, or wrestlers in general, has vastly improved. Vastly improved. It's not anywhere near the same kind of tactics. And if you look at all the entry points, all the takedowns that Seaver took on him, it was while he was rushing in. It was while he was just kind of abandoning his defensive ability to stay on the feet. He was just kind of going for broke, trying to knock him out. So, and he still did, to his credit.
Yeah, I also think that that particular fight, and I do think Khabib's going to take him down. I think is definitely all that what you said, what BJJ Scout pointed out, that's all true. But I also think that in that fight, if you looked at Conor, especially at the weigh-ins and stuff, that was one of the worst cuts I've seen him have. I thought the Aldo one was better. He looked like he was just off crack cocaine. No joke, like he did. That's what he looked like. And I do feel like he felt he only had a couple of rounds in him, so he was going for broke really early. Like, if you look at the pace of that first and second round, it was absolutely insane. Even his work off his back, all them elbows he was landing off his back. That wasn't a guy, you know, pacing himself for 5 rounds.
5 rounds, yeah.
You know, so, or whatever, yeah. So it's different. But yeah, I do think he's gonna be taken down. Yeah. Here's the difficult part. Get another question. Tony J. Wood said, do you think Conor McGregor is the biggest sports star on the planet?
Do I think T. Wood is?
Wait, no, Conor McGregor.
Oh, I don't know why I heard that. I was like reading a comment, then I was like, wait, what? We'll consider that a joke. Is he the biggest? According to Forbes, he's number 4. I want to say it was LeBron James. No, it wasn't even LeBron James. It was actually all football players, like European world football, not American football. Like
Messi, Ronaldo, I guess, is ahead.
Yeah, he was 3. And I can't remember because I didn't know, to be honest, the number 2 and number 1. But, number 1 was Floyd because it was retroactive to 2017. So number 2 is the one I'm blanking out on. Could have been LeBron James, but I feel like it was another football player.
Is this by paid? Is it the highest paid, I guess we're going by? Or is this popularity of some sort?
It was by highest paid. Yeah. Popularity, I'm not sure how you necessarily track that. But we can, I guess the point was we can definitely track cash, and that seems to be indicative of something, of fame. But I don't know. I mean, I figure football players, you know, like world football players. Yeah. I don't know what else to call it, so that I feel bad saying soccer. I don't know why, but like I feel like those are the highest paid because they have the entire world watching them outside of the U.S.
I agree.
So I mean, they've got, you know, I don't know, about 90 million from the UK and Ireland combined. They've got Spain, they've got Brazil, fucking Brazil. That's the biggest sport. You know, we know how big fighting is there. I mean, you think of all these nations, you know, like you put them all together and they pretty much all like to watch soccer fervently, you know. So I think those are probably the slightly bigger stars.
Yeah, I agree. I think football is just way too big of a sport globally. So I think they're definitely I see you laughing at something, the biggest sport globally. So I think that's the one. But Conor's definitely up there, which is, when you think about it, it's crazy for this sport, mixed martial arts. Who would have thought that we would have had one of the biggest sports stars in the world?
And to do it that fast.
Yeah.
Like, think of how long, I mean, even Jon Jones, before all of his issues came up, GSP, Anderson Silva, Fedor, like all these people, think of how long they were around and how long they were dominant and how long they were extremely popular. That was what extremely popular meant. Ronda Rousey, too, to her credit. You know, you got to give her credit as far as her status was.
Yeah.
There's not actually been a single MMA fighter except for Ronda Rousey on Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show. There were people that were on it when it was late night, when he was basically doing, if you're American, Fallon. You know what I mean by this, but I actually love Fallon.
I can't watch him. I don't know. I just find him very awkward.
That's what people say. I just think he comes off as a real fan. And
yeah, no, he does, but it's just very awkward sometimes. I don't know what it is.
He gets that a lot. I've definitely seen that in the past. But as far as I can kind of look into it and see, like, she's the only one that actually made it onto that show, and that's by far the biggest late night show, way bigger than anybody else out there. I don't know. I feel like I could jump into the whole reason why I think that, but anyhow, those are pretty much the only two stars to really skyrocket to that level of fame. And Ronda Rousey, she was the third most Googled person in 2015. So that was a pretty massive, like, in the world. That was what Cosmo published that. But
yeah, I have the Forbes list up here, the top 10. So here's the top 10 in terms of money. Again, you can't really measure popularity, I guess, but number 1 was Floyd Mayweather, by a landslide. More than double this number 2, which was Lionel Messi, who's a football player, Cristiano Ronaldo, football player, and then Conor McGregor, and then you had Neymar, football. So like, football does dominate the top 10, and then LeBron James was there, Roger Federer was there, and is it Stephen Curry or is it Stephen Curry? I don't know.
Stephen Curry. Is
that basketball? Is it? Yeah, basketball.
Yeah, it's basketball. Yeah.
So that's your top 10 in terms of cash. So take that as you will. Before I want to the next question, I have one here, or our next comment. Give this video a like. There's loads of people in the chat, but there's a lack of likes, and I feel very unloved. So fix that, please.
And just so you guys know, we're not doing that just for like love or stuff like that. Like, there's a real reason. Like, when if you do that kind of stuff, that's the only indication that YouTube gets to recommend your videos against other videos. They're a binary system. When people show response, it helps a lot. Yeah, they're a binary system. They need to see the people actually clicking that. So it takes a second, and that's very appreciative. That was weird. Shakib Ahmed said the same people who are offended by Jon Jones' USADA clearance are excited as fuck to see Brock Lesnar back. Do you think that's a true statement? Kind of is for some people. And not to hurt Luke Thomas too much, not to harp him too much, but I think what he said is dead on. Like, people are so pissed that Jon Jones is back, but they're going to be all about it the day before the fight. They're going to be watching it. They're going to be there. And I think it's indicative of how much do we actually care about PEDs. Like, I feel like we care about it on a hypothetical level, but in reality, like, we want to see Brock Lesnar get his ass beat by Daniel Cormier. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the reason they're excited about it. They want to see the cheat get beat by the Olympian who lost to the other cheat, and Jon Jones, and they want to see him come back, But cheat, I'm kind of putting quotations on there. Not that I necessarily disagree, but I don't want to indict anybody. But, like, it's one of those kind of things where maybe it's just an excitement over seeing somebody like Lesnar get his ass beat, and especially after all the Mark Hunt stuff, it's like, it's just kind of a feel-good beatdown, which is kind of a fucked up thing to say, but I think that might be true. I have a question here, and it relates to kind of what you said, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about the prospect of Floyd Mayweather fighting Manny Pacquiao again, and I don't like it, because I don't know, I just don't like it. And I didn't really like the Maymac thing when it was announced, and a lot of people don't like Brock Lesnar coming back, but on the night it does change things. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's a question about something that I don't like, and I'm not going to like on the night either. But I do think that if you put it in perspective, the night of Maymac, even though all the way up I was like, I just want to see Conor fight MMA, I was excited when I turned it on. I sat down and I was like, I'm excited to see this spectacle. And a lot of people at this point now are kind of afraid to admit that they were excited, but I know a lot of people were excited about that. Not because they thought Conor was going to win, not that they thought it was going to be a win for MMA, whatever. A lot of people knew it was going to be a bit of a farce, and I think it was more competitive, as a lot of people said, but a lot of people won't admit that at the time everyone was excited to see that, just to see what would happen. And now in retrospect, or people just won't admit to that. But you had a comment, I could see by your face. It's so easy to tell for me, but I think the big thing about that fight, and it is this weird, strange, it's the thing that's made Conor McGregor so popular. Like, you can hate on him for not defending his belts, but in every single case, he always took the tougher fight. Yeah. Like, if you were saying he was avoiding Edgar, but but he went up and fought Eddie Alvarez, a bigger, stronger wrestler with bigger punching power. Edgar did just knock out Chad Mendes before that, but Eddie Alvarez has, all these. We just saw the Justin Gaethje fight earlier this year. The Poirier fight, he lost, but it was a dog fight, is a durable, incredibly tough wrestler who's beating guys like Pettis, who just beat RDA, who just smashed Cerrone. Like, the tougher fight of Edgar, I would say, like, hands down, between Edgar and Alvarez was Alvarez. And then when you go beyond that, he had just lost to Nate Diaz at 170. He was like, no, let's fight again at 170, the way I lost. Now he's got a full training camp. I think part of what makes Conor McGregor so popular, and Dana White says this too, and I don't mean to parrot that. I made a video called, Dana White's 10 Biggest Lies. I'm not a Dana White fanboy. I'm not a Conor McGregor fanboy. I'm just telling you objective facts that happened. Like, this happened. He fought the tougher guys on each occasion. And we would have preferred to see him defend his belt. But the thing that I think that worked so well about the Mayweather fight is it was this unbeaten guy who's way tougher. And this guy kind of has an ability to make you believe it's possible for him to win. How many times would you click on a video and you would see 49-1 as the top comment?
Yeah.
And he made all those people believe. I wasn't saying that. I was saying all along Mayweather was going to win. But he has an ability to do that. And there was this point where it was like, screw it. This is going to be a huge fight. It's going to be massive. It's going to get MMA's name out there, and even if he loses badly, whatever, and he kind of did lose badly, but like, it was one of those crazy things where you're just like, what if he hits him? I think there's some reality to that, and that's the thing that Conor brings, is this weird, strange X factor. And the way he beat Eddie Alvarez was nothing short of astounding. Like, I don't care if you're a fan of him. I don't care if you hate him. I don't think any of that matters. It doesn't matter what you think about them. It's like, what was the actual performance? That's all that matters.
Yeah. I agree. Corey Smith said, where's Brock with USADA? I thought he got popped. He did get popped, and then I think he's basically served out a suspension, or he had to serve out a suspension, and then he had to go back into the USADA pool before he can fight again. That's why he can't fight until early next year, basically. That's pretty much it.
He got 1 year. I remember his defense was that he took like a foot cream or some sort of topical cream, which is very funny. But that was retroactive to July. Yeah. So he's been cleared since then, but he took himself out of the testing pool to go back to WWE, and he wasn't being tested that entire time. That's the difference between him and Jon Jones. There's some controversy around that because Jon Jones only had one test in the last year, where, I don't know, what did DC have, like 12 in the last year? And if you're in the USADA pool, it doesn't matter if you're suspended or not, you're in the USADA pool. So you're supposed to be being tested regularly. So that's where the controversy with Jones comes in. The difference with Brock is he didn't do any of that. So he was basically on the shelf. And so for him to fight again, he has to do 6 months of USADA pre-testing for him to even be eligible. So he entered back into that. It was like sometime around early August, maybe even in July. I'm not sure when he specifically got in there. Those details are kind of murky, but basically January is where it appears to be that he'll be through his 6 months. So I guess that would have been in July that he started. So that's been the holdup with Brock, and a lot of people have pointed out his physique lately.
Yeah, that's been pointed out. Pinion 11111, I hope I got the right amount of ones there, said, see, Brock lost about 6 inches of girth. I wonder why. Who knows?
Wonder why.
Matty and S said, Roberto looks more like a Max. Okay. I don't know if that's a compliment.
Say it again.
He's calling me Roberto. He's putting an O at the end of my name, which I like.
You, Roberto Duran?
I might adopt that. But he said I look more like a Max, apparently.
Okay. Mad Max over here.
Yeah. I think he also said I look like Donald Trump somewhere, which I don't get. That's just lazy. This Roberto guy looks like Donald Trump.
I think he's just throwing shit out there to get a response from you.
Yeah.
Because there's no stretch of the imagination that you look orange or have blonde hair or are 50 pounds overweight or whatever he is.
Like, I might look like other people, and you can say I look like shit, but what can I say? Harry Dunn. Oh, sorry. Let's go up to this one first. We go to that one. I see you at the Boozer. got that one. Are the UFC taking the piss out of Tony Ferguson? After they stripped him, they are using him to cover the main event in case Khabib or Conor drops out. Are they using Tony Ferguson in that? I know he's on the card, but there was rumours of Kevin Lee potentially training to basically take the short notice fight. I don't know. I do think he got a bad shake in a way, Tony Ferguson, like many other fighters have. He's certainly, I don't know, it's a weird one, but I'm not sure if he's basically been put there for that reason, although he is an option, I guess, if somebody does fall out.
I think Tony Ferguson is that much of a madman where he was probably ringing up the UFC. He's probably saying, hey, I want to fight on this card. I want to establish myself as the number one contender that night, and give me whoever you got, and I'll absolutely dust him. I'll just totally knock him out. I'll deal with him. That's what I think.
Yeah. Corey Smith, breaking news: Artem Lobov was spotted pushing a dolly through Central Park.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
He's ready.
Do you see anything crazy going down at the press conference? Like anything mad, or just see a war of words basically?
I see it more like an Eddie Alvarez, Conor New York press conference, the first one that they did. I feel like it's just going to be a lot of crazy things that they say and a lot of interesting moments. I don't see anything like that happening. Like basically what happened, for the 202 press conferences, Nate Diaz got up and they started throwing shit at him and he started throwing shit back. So it's like, somebody would have to start that up, and I feel like that's such an aberrational case. Like, it just never happens. So I really doubt that. I think it's going to be more the quotables, the just memeable moments is what we'll walk away with. Yeah.
We're about an hour away from the press conference, so we'll finish up before it, obviously, so we won't be on while it's on.
So pumped.
I can't wait to see it. You can follow us on Twitter, and I might give my thoughts on it if you're interested afterwards, and follow MMA on Point as well, because I'm sure Jason or whoever's on the Tom maybe or somebody else could be on their Twitter giving their opinions on it. But here's an interesting question. I thought it's a difficult one I can't think of off the top of my head, so I'm going to throw it at you. Hopefully you have the answer and then I can give my answer afterwards. Tony J. Wood said, who's the next superstar for the UFC after Conor?
Who's the next superstar? Jesus, That's a really tough one. Maybe Zabit, but Zabit doesn't speak English very well, so that's a tough one. I feel like in English, language has to be there. You can be an Anderson Silva, but I feel like you have to have sustained dominance. And Zabit's there. I mean, it could be Khabib. I feel like Khabib's getting really big, but I feel like the thing that Conor has that no one else has had is kind of a mastery of shit talking and that kind of like one punch knockout power that makes him just kind of like just a big attraction. I feel like Nate Diaz is already there, especially if Nate Diaz wins. I mean, he's been there for a while. It's just he's finally getting the attention I think he deserves. But it's really hard to say, like I think you could talk about people that are going to be successful in the next year, people that you think are going to do really well, but there's nobody that's really coming to mind. And I'm just like, that guy's going to be a star.
Isn't that the thing as well? The difficult part about it is they have to be successful. They don't need to be, I don't know what that was, but we'll get back to it.
Somebody said Sean O'Malley.
I was literally going to say that.
Yeah.
Oh my lord! Somebody took it. Sean O'Malley. I think with Sean O'Malley, he's quite an interesting looking dude. He's very different looking, not normal. That sounds like I'm insulting him, but I'm not. He has a unique look, which is always good. Very exciting fighter, different style. Can talk. So I think he has all that going. A little bit of a Conor McGregor to him. I suppose with all the tattoos and his new tattoo on his chest and stuff. I think he got. But I think he could potentially be one. But I'm not sure. Like, he's an excellent fighter, but like, the best guys he's fought is Terrion Ware and Andre Sukumta. So we don't know where he is really in terms of like how successful he can be. Soccer mom.
Andre Soccer mom.
So I don't know about that, but I think he does have everything else, it seems, apart from, what's his ceiling, I guess.
Yeah, it depends. Some people are saying Paulo Costa, which I think is a really good one. Yeah. Actually, Adesanya makes the most sense. That's what Harry Dunn just said. Because, I mean, he's got that. he's probably the one person that fits that. He has the most confusing accent, by the way. It's
Adesanya?
like he sounds American at points, and then he sounds I'm not sure if he's from New Zealand or if he's Australian, but it's like you hear like a divergence of accents. And it's kind of confusing, but I think that he's got the shit talking ability, and my God, does he have the performance ability. So I think if he makes it to a title, he could be a massive star. I really do.
Yeah, I think whoever said Adesanya, that's a great show. I don't know why I didn't think of that one, but I agree. He has the strangest accent in the world. It's New Zealand, American, and a mixture of everything else. But that's a great pick.
Yeah. Somebody else is saying they still think Till's in the conversation. I mean, he could be, but the way he just got beat, like it's going to take, I think, a couple years for him to climb back up. And you're going to have to see him perform well against a wrestler specifically before people really start to get behind him. I'm sure if you're from England, especially in the Liverpool area, you're ride or die with him. But I think for the rest of us, it's kind of just another fighter, until he proves otherwise, until he proves that he really is that kind of spark that we saw going into that fight and why it felt like a big fight, I think was because of him. So, I mean, he's got the ability to come back, but for now he's kind of like, he has to prove something to all those people that really got behind him and thought he would do well. And he just kind of got washed in that fight. I hope he does well. I like him a lot. So,
yeah. WWE Addict said, what do you guys think Conor McGregor is like behind the scenes? Have you guys ever met, come into contact with him?
That's a good question for you.
Yeah, no, I've didn't meet him. I've walked past him a few times at one or two shows, and from the people I know that like train with him and stuff, they all have great things to say about him. Noel has met him on a couple of occasions. He actually, a story that Noel always tells is that when Conor was first coming up, and I think he just signed with the UFC, he had like 2 or 3 fights, and Noel's, who's the other host of the show, his sister was a big fan. And he basically asked Conor, could Conor jump on the phone to his sister and basically say hello? And Conor was, no problem, straight away, jumped on the phone to his sister and said hello. So, those are the stories I've heard. I've heard he's nothing but a nice guy.
I think he'd be a bit exhausting, to be honest. I think he's great to watch, but it seems like a lot of the times it seems like he's always amped up and like super intense, which some people jive with really well, but I'm too mellow for that. I'm too chilled. I'm too laid back. Yeah.
I've also heard as well, just to jump onto that one, that he like just has martial arts and fighting on his mind all the time. Not that he wants to hit people all the time, but like he'll be I think I might have told this before. I've heard a story that he'd be at like a nightclub and he'd be there with his friends and he'd be like, oh, I just thought of this technique, and he'll start doing some kind of Morlock or something on him. So I guess you have to be prepared for that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Number 7 said, is this the lad for MMA on point? And you replied and said it is. And he also said your channel is legit on point.
Respect.
It is, to be fair. I'm a big fan of your channel, Jason.
Thanks, man. I like, sometimes we get shit for posting as often as we do, but man, I take tremendous pride in everything we post, and especially this last one felt like, I don't know, it just felt really, really good to post something about Khabib. And I read what other people were putting out there about him, and I really wanted to do something different and set what we did apart. And I hope I accomplished that. But yeah, it feels really good to hear stuff like that. And they legitimately appreciate all those compliments that we get. So I'm trying to remember who said that. Let me shout him out.
That was
number 7.
Number 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, number 7. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Really do.
I concur with him. George, I can't pronounce your name. Sorry, George said, really enjoy listening to your show, guys. Thanks. I just had to get that
George? In. What? You can't pronounce George all of a sudden?
No,
what happened?
It says.
Oh, I see. George. Yeah, I got you now. I got you.
Come on.
It just sounded like you were trying to say George.
I had to get that compliment in for our show as well, just so I didn't feel so bad.
Yeah, there you go. Balance it out.
Yeah, balance it out. Harry Dunn said, it's looking like Dana is saying Jon Jones isn't going to be the surprise headliner at UFC 230. Is this Dana being coy? What's your best guess at the main event of UFC 230? I'll let you go first on that one.
Well, it certainly seems tone deaf, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems like the obvious fight to make because, I mean, how are you going to top Nate Diaz versus Poirier? You know, that's not a title fight, and that's definitely not GSP in my mind, GSP Bisping level. It's not that big of a fight. They had 3 title fights for that one. They did the year before that as well. So it's really, really, really hard to beat that. I think Tyron Woodley and Colby Covington would make a nice addition. But that even still, you need a bigger fight if you're trying to compete with the last 2 years. Maybe they just kind of resign themselves to the fact that they can't compete with the first 2 years. Pretty tough to keep up with. I mean, you know, what was GSP was out for like 4 years. Conor McGregor going for the second belt in the first ever fight in New York since not ever, but since like 98 or 97. So I think it's really tough to deal with. But in my opinion, I think he's being coy. He keeps doubling down on it though. So I'm kind of like starting to like, maybe he is telling the truth because he said it multiple times. But why would you not do that? Why would you not? There's no reason not to. I mean, the only reason not to is if Jones isn't ready, and I get the distinct impression he is. But Ariel Helwani tweeted out last night that he's getting the same kind of answers from Jon Jones's camp. But I still think they might be being a little bit cool. I mean, this happened at 205. This happened. It was it was actually supposed to be Khabib versus Eddie Alvarez, and there was this whole controversy that Khabib was being used as a pawn. And undoubtedly he was. And they were saying it wasn't going to be Conor McGregor. And then out of nowhere, we got the announcement, and they're like, we're doing a presser tomorrow. And Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. It was that quick. It just happened out of nowhere. Yeah. So definitely when you look at Dana White's track record and the kind of guy he's been in the past, I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah. Just a quick, I guess, I'm going to give my take on that. I pretty much agree with you, so I'm not going to add too much to it. But a few people asking when the press conference is. It's in like an hour. It's in just less than an hour, about 50 minutes or so. And it's being streamed on the UFC's YouTube channel. So you can check it out then after you continue to watch us talk about some stuff. But Jon Jones,
what is that? 5 Eastern time?
Yeah.
Which would be GMT. That would be 10. Yeah.
10 p.m. Yeah. So not too long to go, and I can't wait for it. I'm really, really excited to see what this.
Yeah.
Quick one. Prop bet. Is Conor McGregor late for it?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah.
When was the last time he was on time? You know, he wasn't on time for 205. Wasn't on time for half of the Mayweather McGregor stuff. Wasn't on time for what was 202. He wasn't on time for 196.
Yeah.
Wasn't on time for, maybe he was on time for 194, but
maybe.
I don't know.
Let's see. He got stuck in traffic again. I think that was one of his. Although there was, I think it was I don't know which card it was, but there was one of the cards where they were filming for his documentary, and he actually did get stuck in traffic, which was funny because like everyone was like, "Oh, look at him late," and he legit did get stuck in traffic, which was funny.
It's like true, not true. Like you knew you were going to be stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
you knew that was going to happen.
He was leaving a little bit late, but I'm exactly the same, so I can't really say anything. Jon Jones and 230. Yeah, I think Dana White is being coy. And actually, just a quick one. We broke 100 viewers live on this chat, which is cool. That's the first time we've done that, which is awesome. So cheers. That's awesome. Jon Jones 230. I think Dana White is being coy. Don't really trust what Dana White says, and that's not me saying Dana White's a bad guy for doing that, because Dana White has to do that. He's a promoter. He has to lie to people. I don't know what you said there. What did you say?
I said he's a shithead. I was just kind of kidding.
Oh my God, you're gonna get shut down.
But yeah.
No, that's just me saying that because he's a promoter. He has to lie. Just look at the press conference for whatever it was when they announced Khabib and Conor. About an hour less, about 30 minutes before it was actually announced, he said, "No, this is not the main event." To everybody. He
did say that.
To thousands of people on a stream, hundreds of thousands of people, and to people in the media in the front row, this isn't happening. And then, oh, look, we got something else for you, and show a promo clip, and I lied about it. So, of course, he's going to lie.
Extremely good point. Good point. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Got your back.
I got one. Here's one about your list. Okay. Duran Manuel said, Jason, why on your undefeated fighters list, why was Brian Ortega not there? Stop trying to act knowledgeable with your list of Russian fighters. #casual. Jesus.
Number one, I didn't make that list.
You just narrated it?
No, I didn't narrate it. It wasn't me at all. I want to say that was Tom or Tommy. That's confusing, but Tommy Toehold or Tom Ransom. I don't know. I can't remember what it started at, but I would imagine he wasn't on there because he didn't have that many wins. I mean, what's he at now? I don't even know.
Yeah. That's a potential superstar as well, I think, Brian Ortega.
Brian Ortega is amazing. I love him. And so is Max Holloway. Like, legitimately could go either way, especially if he would have fought Khabib, and especially if he would have won at 223. Holy shit, that would have sent Max Holloway over the moon, and it probably would have set him up for Conor McGregor. It's hard to say, but what's he at? He's at 14-0. The highest on that list was 26-0. So I would imagine we probably started somewhere around 18-0 on that list. And I don't think Brian Ortega fit into the top 10. There's Tom Ransom. I said that was me. Yeah, so Tom can actually speak to it, but I'm pretty sure we started way after 14-0. Yeah. Like, it was way bigger tallies than that.
So it was Tom. Tom is the one. Tom, explain yourself to this man.
Do it.
There's one here. I think you mentioned this before. Ben on Tony said, Jason Hartley, you sound like Joe Rogan. Why do you talk about Khabib?
Who's Joe Rogan? See new?
Some guy. I think he's got a podcast.
I was telling you about this, but Joey Diaz came to Nashville. I live right outside of Nashville, and he came to Zany's, and he did a stand-up comedy routine. And dude, unbelievably good. But I was trying so hard. Like, we tried to wait after. I was gonna, shake his hand and get like a short little clip of him saying like he doesn't sound like Joe Rogan, because I swear every single list we ever do, I get that, and I wanted it would be just so funny if he did that. But yeah, I need to try to get on the Joe Rogan podcast. Yeah, like that's an easy thing to do. Just be like, all right, let's say the same sentence and see if we sound alike.
I don't get it personally. I don't get it. The voice. Right. I don't think you sound that much like him. But maybe if you did say, like, if I did have two clips side by side, maybe I would get it more. I'll see at the Boozer said...
Oh, see, Tom Ransom said that Brian Ortega was number 7.
Oh.
So he was on that list.
God damn it.
Your boy Duran Manuel, whatever. See, you weren't even looking at it. Till was on that list. He's saying that Till wasn't on this. Duran is trolling.
Come on, Duran. Go back and watch it.
Go somewhere else on this chat. Go watch that video and come back. Quit trolling us.
I think he also said, I can't find it, but he also said that weed was just legalized in his country, so he's super high, so that probably explains a lot of things.
Oh, okay. Well, respect then, virtual fist bump.
You tried.
Yeah, get high.
I'll see at the Boozer said it could be Joanna versus Valentina for the belt. Have you seen this news? There was talk of Joanna going up and Valentina and her fighting for the now vacant belt. What's your thoughts on that?
That would be incredible. And they did say that they wanted to put her on the first card as soon as she's available, really. Yeah. That's what Dana White said. So, if they do that, that would be the perfect time to do it. Because, I mean, it's really you got 2 tentpole events this year for every year for the UFC now. Yeah. And kind of 3. But you've got July's card, the International Fight Week, and you've got the New York card. And that's always in November, or it has been, for the last 3 years now. And then there's kind of the NYE show, the New Year's Eve show. But that's kind of fallen apart. That's not been as consistent. But it would make sense to just stack up this card and just have it. I mean, why not? I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I know WrestleMania is their big tentpole event, and it does better than anything else the rest of the year. Why not do that for the UFC? It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So if you do it twice a year, better if you do it once a year. But New York has certainly beaten out International Fight Week. Why not keep up that legacy? Why not?
Yeah, I really like the fight. They fought a couple of times in Muay Thai, didn't they? I think it was 3 times, and I'm pretty sure Valentina won every single one of those, right?
Duran is going hard in the comments. You're a good guy, Duran. I'm sure you are, but you're being a bit of a turd.
Come on,
total
Duran.
Turd. Just a turd. A turd. I'm just going to keep saying it. Turd burglar, even. But yes, I babble on. That is true.
Yeah. So 3 fights they had in Muay Thai. So I would love to see them doing MMA. I think it'd be a very different fight. And for me, I think Joanna, I'd really like to see her move up, because it seems like her weight cut is tough. It seems like that for her to get back to fight Rose is going to be a tough task because of the 2 fights she lost. So I think it makes complete sense for her to go up. Valentina isn't that big. I don't think it's going to be a huge size difference. It's a great matchup. Makes sense. They're 2 stars in their own right. I think a lot of people are really getting on that Valentina bandwagon now. Not bandwagon, but it is what it is, as Max Holloway would say. And Joanna is still a bit of a star since the whole title run. I know she lost some fans with both her actions, but it seems like something's going on in the chat again. What's going on?
Somebody said turd burglar is a homophobic slur, and I'm just like, that is so off the wall. That's hilarious. FYI. Thanks, Luke. Now I know.
By the way, Seismic Shock just said I spammed the BT Sports channel with obviously my talk. Least I could do.
Yeah.
Jeez. Thanks, I guess, but I don't know how good that is for. I don't know. Thanks, because that's brilliant.
Tom's getting geared up. He's all over the chat too.
What's Tom saying now?
Batista. Drizzy J. Drizzy Drake, Drizzy J said Batista versus Khabib, and Tom's all about that fight. He says, I love that fight.
Best fantasy matchups, MMA on points, next video. Batista versus thing. Let's get a real question here.
Let's do it.
What about Cyborg saying her fellow Brazilian is a traitor? Linus, so obviously talking about Amanda Nunes. I'm not really sure. I didn't really see that. I think, did she say that because she's training in the States? But I don't know why she said that, to be honest.
That's like the RDA thing. Yeah. I haven't seen that. I honestly don't know what the story is behind that. That is pretty crazy, though.
What's your thoughts on that fight?
It sounds like the RDA thing. Amanda has looked really, really good. Actually, speaking of Shevchenko, that was probably her only real test since a champion. I feel like she's just absolutely destroyed everyone else. I mean, you have people wanting to quit in the corner against her now.
Yeah.
I think Cyborg still gets it, though. I mean, Cyborg famously struggled to cut down to 140 pounds, really struggled. So I think that what you're going to see is, the stronger, bigger person taking over. And you also saw that Cyborg can put together a really good game plan, like the way she did against Holly Holm. Like, that opens my eyes a lot, just seeing her go up against somebody like that and be more tactical, spread out her cardio, and she made it all through 5 rounds and beat her, and she actually came out way ahead in the last round. So I think that Cyborg, I think she's too big, I think she's too strong, and she's good enough on the ground to where even if it went there, from my understanding, Amanda Nunes does have a BJJ black belt, so but even if it went there, I think Cyborg would be fine. I'm not familiar with her credentials on the ground, but I really think that we're looking at something there with a Cyborg kind of emerging finally. Not that there's been that much debate recently, but as the pound for pound best woman fighter on the planet.
Yeah, I do. I actually really like this fight, though. I think it's very interesting. I think it's the first fight in a long time, probably ever. I can't really think of one that I think it's competitive. Like, I think Cyborg has a real fight in her hands here, and I really like that. And I know that, it's the whole super fight thing. You have a champion going up again, but who really was there for Amanda to fight at this point? There's not really somebody that's really jumping out at me anyway. And then Cyborg has nobody to fight because she doesn't have a division. She just rules that division, waits for somebody to come up or waits for somebody to get brought in, beats them, and then they go back to whence they came, as they say.
It's been from whence they came, they shall remain, never to return again. And that's actually from Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny.
Oh, man, what a
super
movie.
Random. Yeah, I don't think, I'm actually looking at it right now. So featherweight, still no rankings available. So to your point, Cyborg is literally just waiting like, okay, do you have anybody yet?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's at that point. And the only intriguing fight, to be honest, Ketlin Vieira's coming up. I think that would be a great one for Amanda Nunes. But other than that, Kat Zingano is probably the only other one that interests me, but she's not, I mean, she's on a 2-fight losing streak, I want to say right now. She certainly hasn't won in a while.
Yeah.
Watch it turn out that her last one she did win, and my memory's that bad. Let me see. What did Kat Zingano have last? She had Oh, she did. She beat Marion Renault, but she lost to Ketlin Vieira, Juliana Pena, and of course Ronda Rousey. So, yeah, so she did win her last fight, but that's not quite enough to get a title fight. I think she needs one or two more wins to be ready for that.
Completely agree. Opinion 11111 said, thoughts on Tony versus Pettis? Surely a few kicks to that dodgy knees on the cards.
Dodgy knees.
Are you Irish? Opinion 111. That sounded like something an Irishman would say, or maybe English. But let us know. What's your thoughts on that fight? I think we speak about this fight before.
Which fight was it again?
Clip. Or was that me and Noel? I can't remember.
Which fight?
Tony versus Pettis. Ferguson Pettis.
Yes, we did.
Yes. Yeah. But again, what's your thoughts? Your fresh thoughts? Have you changed your opinion?
I'm honestly trying to remember what I said. I mean, basically, I think Tony Ferguson is going to take it.
Yeah.
Because I think Tony Ferguson is too well-rounded. The question is what is his knee like? You know, will he trip over any more cables in between now and then?
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know, but I think I think he's not only a very, very technical fighter, not only incredibly, I mean, so is Pettis. Pettis is really gifted on the ground. So, they're both really well-rounded. I don't mean to say that Pettis isn't, but I just think Tony Ferguson, I mean, he's just ridiculously tough as well. I mean, like they were talking about when he fought RDA, he was shin kicking RDA, like shin to shin.
Yeah.
To hurt RDA, even though it hurt him. And I mean, you've seen him like kicking, metal poles and shit like that. Like, he's crazy. Yeah. So I just think that Tony Ferguson I think he's at the prime of his career. I would love to see Pettis do well because I like Pettis too. Honestly, I don't care who wins the fight, but I just see him, Ferguson winning it. So,
I think Pettis has a shot. I don't think it's as one-sided as everyone else says. I do think it's more one-sided if Tony Ferguson is active fighting and he's not coming off injury. I think you still have to have the question of, what's he going to look like when he comes back. Ferguson's definitely the favourite, but I also think that a lot of people who say that why is Pettis getting this shot? Why isn't Ferguson fighting someone higher up? Why is he fighting a better guy or whatever? I think Ferguson loves this fight. I really do. I think Ferguson really, really loves this fight for a couple of reasons. The first reason is Pettis is still a name to a lot of casual fans. People still know who he is. He was on the damn Wheaties box, for God's sake. Wheaties isn't even a thing over here, but I still think it's a cool thing.
I mean, it's like kind of a legendary thing. It's definitely waned, but like Michael Jordan was on there. I mean, even Wayne Gretzky was on there at some point. Like so obviously he's Canadian, but it's like you're a big athlete, you're on the Wheaties box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he has that. It's also a manageable fight skill wise, as in it's not this wrestler who will take down Tony Ferguson and maybe fight in a way that Ferguson doesn't like. He's going to strike with him. He's going to go to the ground with him if he wants. It's probably in the top 10 the best fight for Ferguson in terms of what he'd feel like is the easiest fight to come back to. And then for Pettis, it's a similar thing. It's not a wrestler. He wants to fight strikers. Tony Ferguson will strike with him. I think it's a great matchup. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean, if Tony Ferguson wins really impressively, I think that's the thing he's thinking about. Like, if he does it better than Diaz does, and especially if Diaz loses, and it's kind of like a bad decision on Poirier's part, I mean, it's almost like a shoe-in that he would get the title fight against McGregor or Khabib,
Yeah. Another thing actually as well is that realistically, if Tony Ferguson got back and he fought, say, who's up there? Dustin Poirier or Eddie Alvarez, they're ranked 3 and 4 in the UFC rankings. Does a win over them do a whole lot more than a win over Pettis in the UFC's eyes in terms of if he's going to get a title fight, if he's going to get a big fight next? I don't think so. I don't think it does a whole lot. If he's going to get a title fight after he comes back and wins, it probably doesn't matter who he fights because he's going to get it anyway. And if he's not going to get the title fight again, it doesn't matter. It's all about what makes sense. Tony Ferguson just needs to come back and get a win, and then he's going to be in the exact same position as he was before he left. Doesn't matter who it is. I genuinely feel that way. It could be top 15, and I still think he's going to be back
Tony
where he was.
Ferguson, he's at this point where he's already done. I mean, he literally was the champion, and a freak accident happened. Like he pretty much just like if he's active, that just makes fans even a bigger fan of him. You know, the fact that he's taking fights and coming back so quickly off, you know, a pretty big knee injury. You know, I think it just makes him look that much better because he's just that crazy good a guy to jump back in there. And especially if he finishes him impressively, he's basically already earned his title shot. It's just kind of a matter of this strange, you know, pecking order of trying to get past the massive rematch or, you know, trilogy that is McGregor versus Diaz. And that's, you know, obviously if McGregor wins. So,
yeah. Ahmed said, Khabib Ahmed said, I don't know what you laughed at. Let me get this one out and then you can explain.
Go for it.
Because we already answered this one. I was going to go through a quick. Palin, I couldn't get my hands on Conor's Proper 12. If you've tried it, how does it compare to Jameson? We said at the top, haven't tried it yet, but just a little clue. If you had Bushmills Irish whiskey from the north, it might taste a little bit like that because those are the same guys who have distilled it. It's from their distillery, so it might have a Bushmills-y feel to it. There you go. You can have that one for free. That's a high level
breakdown there.
You can have that one for free. So what happened? What was?
Somebody said I in the Bill Gates of MMA.
What?
For some reason, Duran thinks that's a compliment. I think that was more of a roast.
Say that again. I missed that. You know what?
He says Jason is the Bill Gates of MMA analysts. I wouldn't consider myself an analyst. He's saying I'm dorky is what he's saying. And Duran seems to think that's a compliment. He's like, Harry, you don't have to suck Jason off. Tony J. Wood already did that. I don't think that's a compliment, Duran. You need to kind of balance what compliments are.
Maybe he's saying you have the money of Bill Gates.
Jesus Christ, I wish. No, I'm just...
Somebody said, Harry Dunn said, Robert Palin is the Luke Thomas, the Irish Luke Thomas.
Like the more like average height, average build kind of version of Luke Thomas.
Yeah, if you put me in Luke Thomas...
How tall are you?
I'm only 5'10".
5'10". Oh, that's the average height. Average height is about 5'10". So yeah. But what is Luke Thomas, like 6'4", and he's like 300 pounds? That dude's massive.
That almost sounded like an insult, though. Like the way you said that. I was like,
average height?
That's average height, yeah.
Well, you made it sound like you're really short, and I was like, that's actually not bad. See, you're average height.
The thing is, right, if I ever go to an MMA show and Noel is like 6'4", so I always feel so like really small, you know?
I was wondering how tall he was because, you know, recently I added him on Facebook, and you just see him like in the ring, and he's like towering over everybody. I was like, is it just that everybody that fights in Ireland is short, or Noel's really tall? I guess he's super tall.
He's 6'4". It's insane. He stands beside fighters, and it's like makes them look really, really small. It's weird.
Wow.
It's Pernix said, Jason, he obviously doesn't want my opinion on this. No, he said, Jason, did you see Dana White's interview on ESPN? When one of the reporters brought up Tyron Woodley, they cut the video off.
Yeah, I saw you wrote that, and I was kind of waiting to get to that. I did not see that. I watched the interview, but I didn't catch that. I have to go back and see that now. That's crazy because oh man, I hope that somebody like Capoza or somebody like that's always like posting videos on Twitter happened to catch that live while it was on TV.
You know
because
what?
I doubt they just went to commercial or something.
I can do one better. I have the video here. Hopefully this is it. I'll try to get it up now. And see if this works.
But that's the video that he's saying got cut off on.
Yeah, I think so because I watched it earlier. Now, what happened was when I was watching it earlier was that I was watching it, but I was just listening to it. So he mentioned it, and I don't know what they cut to. So I thought the video just ended. Maybe there was something after it. But let's see. I'll do it. You're on a bit of a delay, Jason, so you won't see this live. So it's going to be a little bit weird. But you can check.
Son of a bitch.
You can check it out afterwards. Let me see.
His personal life on track.
Okay,
God knows what this guy would be doing.
He's his own worst enemy, but the spider's something special.
By the way, Mom,
I gotta get on you. One person I don't think we give enough to. I'm just a fan. Other than Jon Jones and Conor McGregor, I do like Tyron Woodley too.
I don't know. To be honest, it did cut off, but that could be the YouTube video. If you watched it live and they did that on ESPN, then yeah, that's hilarious because obviously Tyron Woodley and Dana White seem to have a bit of a rocky relationship of sorts. I don't know if you can see it, Jason. Can you?
I can't turn it up because if I turn it up, then I'm hearing us echoing back. So I see it on the screen though.
Yeah. They do cut, but I'm not sure if that's the YouTube video or if that's actually what happened live. If it's what happened live, that's kind of funny.
That's actually hilarious. It's like that bad to where they're literally cutting him out.
Yeah.
Tom said Jensen got it. Jensen's our social media guy, and he just is a tweeting machine. So I imagine that's a joke on Tom's part. Definitely haven't seen that tweet. That's hilarious.
Yeah, your social media or your Twitter does be pretty good. You have a lot of tweets going out. Fair play to that guy.
Yeah, man. We got to get that check, man. They got the check shut down on Twitter. We need to get that check already.
Yeah, I know. What the hell? Come on, Twitter.
Yeah. We can't even apply for it.
It's
we have to know the right people.
Robbie looks more like Cody Garbrandt. All he needs is a neck tattoo. I won't be getting neck tattoos, but I got that one before. And somebody...
I can see that one more.
Yeah, somebody actually photoshopped my face on the Cody Garbrandt's body, some listener, and posted it all over Twitter. The only thing
That's
is...
great.
Their Twitter account got deleted. I don't know if they deleted it or they got deleted for whatever reason. So I can't find the pictures anymore, but it was quite funny.
That's great. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, so people are saying that's the video. Go to the last 10 seconds. I went to it. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure. Claude Anders said, I love how this podcast is very working class. Very much keeping the fans involved on a fight fans level. Great work, boys. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Man. That's awesome. There's also people saying 28 minutes to go, counting down the time to do the presser. I wonder if anything's happening online, because not only when these pressers happen, you usually have tweets of people arriving at the arena or this person spotted in the arena, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder
rumblings of what's going on backstage.
Yeah, I wonder if anything's going on. If it is going on, let us know. We're going to go for another couple of minutes and then we'll have to leave you. But man, we're at 162 viewers right now. That's kind of cool. If we make it to 200, that'd be amazing. That would just make my night. Yeah. So
I feel like they're all joining the chat and they're like, "Oh, this isn't the actual presser. I'm out."
Yeah, I know exactly. That's what's happening. Although some of them are staying. So
yeah. We did a live stream for 223 actually, because Tom visited the States and we did it with a buddy of ours. We had 74,000 people watch us doing that on MMA On Point. No. But
I'm joking.
There was like half dislikes because they all thought it was the actual fights.
Oh, wow.
So it was like the dislikes are through the roof, and we're like, we can't even think of what else to call it, because if we call it the fight companion, then we're being accused of copying Joe Rogan. So it's like, well, what do you even do?
I saw this video online. While I can't see any questions, get your questions in before we leave. We'll probably do another 10 minutes or so. But I saw Khabib, a TMZ interview, the classic TMZ interview. You're walking down the road and they come up to you and they ask you questions. But he was asked about Daniel Cormier, I guess, and he basically said that Daniel Cormier is the greatest champion inside and outside the cage. I kind of agree in a way. I think Daniel Cormier is very underrated. Very, very underrated. I think he seems like a really nice guy. Seems to do everything pretty well by the book, and excellent fighter. I think he's one of those guys who he's not going to be as appreciated until he leaves the sport, until he's actually hangs him up.
Yeah, like Towelgate was one of his best moments.
Oh yeah, Towelgate.
I'm just trolling, but like he brought up the point, and DC brought this up on UFC Tonight, the fact that he had, 70 tests throughout his entire career going back to wrestling, and he's like, I've never once popped, and just kind of getting angry about the whole Jon Jones situation, which makes a lot of sense. And Khabib brought that up on that TMZ kind of walk and talk, and of course they're training partners, so he's going to support his guy all the way. But it brought up kind of a poignant thing, and it goes back to what we were talking about with Josh Barnett and Benchita and all these guys that have gotten punishments. Even Yoel Romero, basically they found out that it wasn't his issue, or Anderson Silva, his is kind of murky, but they said that it wasn't his fault and they didn't feel he cheated. But it's like all these people are getting all these punishments and they're basically being treated like normal, and Jon Jones is getting the slice off. So the Khabib interview, the walk and talk with TMZ, was very interesting. Not only his comments about Cormier, but also Jones. Absolutely.
Man, I need to check that out.
It's a good one.
There was a question here. Do you think, this is from Patrick McGovern, a good strong Irish name, I guess. Do you think that the fight will go over or under 2.5 rounds? So I assume he's talking about McGregor and Khabib.
Ooh, that's a tough one. So everyone is, if anyone's a super hardcore fan here, they're going to hate me for saying this, and I've said it before, but if you're hearing me say this for the first time, you'll hate me for saying it equally bad as the first people did. But I think Conor's actually going to knock him out or, TKO him within the first 2 rounds. Obviously, if it goes beyond that, I'm calling it for Khabib. So I tend to fall inside the 2.5 thing, and I wouldn't even say the third, because when we've seen the Nate Diaz fights, it's really the second round and it's kind of out, even when he was conserving his energy and doing lots of lead kicks and not going for this crazy spinning wild kicks that he did in the first fight. So I actually think Conor, just because every fight starts standing and all the issues and what everyone, it's just widely publicized how Khabib just kind of comes straight in at you. And I think he's going to get caught in that way. Kind of like what we saw with Stipe versus Verdum, if you guys remember that one. Verdum just kind of rushed at him, and he got caught. And I think we're going to look at a similar situation. But, Khabib could easily just maul him. So, it's not a 100% confidence thing.
Yeah, I tend to think that it's going to go more. I think it's going to be a late finish or a decision, and I'm still feeling that Khabib's going to win the fight, as insane as that probably sounds to some people because I am Irish, but obviously that's just the way I do see it going at this point.
I feel like that's the conventional safe bet, is to say that Khabib wins it.
Yeah, I'm being safe, I think. But we'll see what happens leading up. You never know. This press conference could change my mind. I could think, no, it's changing. It's going to happen. But who knows? But yeah. Cool.
Someone starts crying.
Cool the Fool said that he thinks the fight companion is fair game, so don't worry about it. You can go for it. It's not stealing Joe Rogan.
I think the issue is just getting people that I can do it with consistently.
Yeah.
Because Tom is obviously in the UK, which is 6 hours ahead. So it's like by the time the fights are going on, it's like 4 a.m.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yes. So if I had like somebody, especially if they would be there and we could actually drink beer and have a good time, then I would do it all the time. But not everybody, that's my friend that watches fights with me necessarily wants to be on camera, and they can't necessarily be there every time. So it's kind of like, but yeah, that's a good, it's a good shout. I think it's just because I saw Tom Ransom in there. It's a good shout is not an American saying. It's something that Tom used to say all the time. But yeah, it's a good shout that, we could use that. And if we do bring that back, maybe we would.
Do you think it'd have to be someone in the room? Like for me, I think it does have to be, but probably doesn't. Like you could probably do a certain way like this, and it still could be good. It's just obviously your feed wherever you're watching the fights might be different, so it might be a bit off, I guess.
I'm into it. If there's somebody that we could do that, but I think. As with Tom, I think Tom would readily say this. He often watches the fights the next day.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tom has an actual, real social life.
Really?
So, yeah, I don't. So, he actually has shit going on a Saturday night, and he doesn't necessarily want to wake up at 4 a.m. Because he's out, doing stuff the night before. So it's difficult to find somebody that would do it. But what I was laughing about is Duran Manuel is like, hey, I'm super entertaining, bro. I'm available. Let's do it. If you keep talking shit about my top 10 list, you can forget about it. I don't care. You can criticize it.
Everybody, let Jason know if this should happen. If
Skype me.
Yeah, a buddy cop live stream with Jason and Joran Manuel. Is that who it was?
Yeah. There you go.
He also said, decent question. Decent, I mean good, as we discovered early in the podcast. If Conor smokes Khabib in under 1 minute, can he fight again in New York if he doesn't take any damage?
Usually people get 30-day suspension, but that's certainly been weighed before. Obviously, the Bisping case fighting against Gastelum was because they were in China and they could just kind of do whatever the hell they wanted because there was no actual real state athletic commission. For one, they weren't in a state. They were just in China. And so they oversaw their own event, and that's part of why they got – but they also got approval too. And I don't know if it was Nevada that did that. I don't know if it was Mohegan Tribe or somebody like that, one of these national ones. But, they have gotten around that before. I just really doubt it. I wouldn't put it past Conor, though, to be like, fuck it. Let me fight. Let's bump Poirier off there. Let me fight Nate Diaz. But that would be insane for him to try to do a marathon fight like that again.
Yeah.
Potentially. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen either. I don't know if he'd get any kind of... if that does happen, it's 1 minute and maybe it's like a Jose Aldo type thing and he can fight.
Yeah.
I think Conor might go for it because it seems like he's now at that point where he doesn't really want to have that huge build up to a fight, the whole media tour type thing. So maybe he'd go for it, but I'm not sure if they would do it. Although you never know. You really never know.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible, and especially with Conor McGregor is just kind of like, he's just down to fight anyone type kind of mentality. It's possible. So.
Dave Little said, I think I know Dave. Hello, Dave. That's the Dave I know. Do you think Dustin Poirier can beat Diaz? Could be an interesting fight based on Dustin's last few displays.
I'm actually preliminarily calling that one for Poirier.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think Poirier's at the best point of his career. I think he's extremely motivated. I think he's ready for that title. I think that last loss to Conor has kind of motivated him to fight him again. But, I mean, I obviously could see Nate Diaz winning it too. When you just kind of look back at the history of the kind of fights that they've won, I feel like it's really tough to say. I just feel like Poirier at this point stands out to me for winning it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go for Poirier. I think Nate Diaz does well against a certain type of fighter, and I think that Dustin Poirier isn't technically that type of fighter. Did you have something there?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt every time I smirk at one of these. It's just some guy jumped into the chat named Tyrone 170-pound Goat Woodley, and his second comment was Tyrone is the greatest welterweight of all time. It's like, okay, good. Didn't know from your screen name or anything. I don't think he's the greatest of all time, but I think he's in the top 3. I think he's right there with Hughes and GSP, but I think if he gets another win, then yeah, perhaps he is better than Hughes in terms of what he's done. The thing about Woodley, and I mentioned this last time, is Woodley has fought a lot of specialists. He fought a striker twice who doesn't know much about the ground game in Stephen Thompson. Then he fought pretty much an exclusively ground guy. I mean, Maya's come out and said that he used to not punch because he wanted to prove how good jiu-jitsu was. In his fights, he used to intentionally not punch and just try to submit people. And then he fought another striker who clearly didn't know. I mean, you watch Daniel Cormier, even on the broadcast, just talking about how Till didn't have a clue what to do. He just was kind of trying to hide away from the punches and slid right into a Darce choke and didn't have a clue how to defend it. So I think that's the one knock I have right now is I'm waiting to see him fight somebody. And to be honest, Covington's more the same. Covington is another ground guy who doesn't know anything about striking. I think he'll get washed on the feet. I think he'll get washed on the ground. I think Woodley's just better than him in every way. The one thing is there hasn't been – I mean, you could say USADA, you could say whatever you want about Johnny Hendricks, but that guy was a crazy good wrestler, crazy good puncher. Koscheck was that way. Fitch didn't really have any knockouts, but he was extremely strong on the ground and was competent on the feet. And then, of course, GSP has it all going on for him. Even though he didn't necessarily have knockouts, he did obviously hurt Bisping on the feet before he choked him out. So it's one of these kind of things where I don't think that Woodley has necessarily been up against any kind of test that stylistically makes sense for him. He can knock out anybody, he can submit anybody, he can take down anybody, and there's nobody that's been able to even say maybe they were a super strong striker and competent on the ground, maybe a Pettis type kind of guy. Yeah. There's not been anybody like that because Pettis is actually really good with submissions. You would say that would even be a better matchup, with a prime Pettis going up against a Tyron Woodley at 170. So Pettis is obviously 155. But to kind of get my analogy, there's not even been anybody like that Woodley's fought. And the guys he lost against were guys like Jake Shields, who were really good on the ground, enough to kind of make up for the feet issue. And it's that long ago, and he's a bigger guy who used to fight at middleweight. You've got guys like Rory McDonald, who also worked him on the feet and then beat him on the ground. There's just not been a really well-rounded guy that's strong in all areas yet. So
that's something he's missing. Like, I was thinking in like my own mind, how Woodley gets to that point where you can call him the greatest welterweight of all time. And it's difficult because, you know, GSP, you always talk about that. People always look back in the past and say somebody's the best because that's kind of when they came into the sport. And I think we are guilty of that sometimes. But I do think you're right. I do think Woodley hasn't beat that guy who's been really well-rounded, like a GSP type, like a Rory, I guess, to really kind of put a stamp on that. Question here, want to ask you about this one. Do you have a few more minutes, Jason, or are you in a rush to leg it?
Oh, dude, we're chill. We can go all the way up until right before it starts if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. No point in leaving. So we're going to stay in until right before the presser starts and then go to the UFC's YouTube page to watch it. And we'll all watch it together. Not on this chat, though, but just by ourselves.
As friends.
Yeah, as friends. But as I said at the start, is if you can give this a like, that'd be great. It actually really does help. It helps a lot if you like the video, because then YouTube will see people are liking it. And then we can all be happy, whatever. The question was, I didn't know where I was going with that.
Together.
Yeah, I didn't know where I was going with that, but yeah,
we can all be happy.
That'd be awesome. The question was, and I can't find it now, but I have it in my head. Basically, who should Jon Jones fight if he comes back? There's rumours of Gustafsson. I think that's the correct fight. What do you think?
I think that DC will hold on for the Jon Jones fight. I think he really wants the Brock fight. I don't think he wants to jeopardize that. I think if he fights Jon Jones, he's obviously, you know, in his words, lost to him twice, officially lost to him once. But in his words, in his mind, the way he even talks about it, he lost to Jon Jones twice. I don't think he wants to fight Jon Jones and jeopardize the biggest payday, you know, theoretically, of his entire career against, you know, Brock Lesnar. So I think he wants that fight first. And he may fight, you know, he's talked about fighting at light heavyweight before then, but I think Gus makes the most sense for that. And then I think the two of them clash after the Brock fight. That's what I think happens. So I think Gus makes the most sense. And to be honest, that's a rematch I've wanted since 2013 so bad. I think we all have. And I think it makes the most sense. But on the flip side of that, if they do fight, Jon Jones wins. Jon Jones versus Brock. So it's win-win for the UFC if they do decide to put it at 230.
Yeah, I think Gustafsson's right. For a few reasons, I don't think Jon Jones should come back for a title fight. I just don't think so. I don't think they should make... I know Gustafsson said, let's make this a title fight and strip DC or make it an interim title fight. I don't think that should happen. I think the UFC have to not give Jon Jones a title fight. Whatever you think about drug testing, I just don't think he can do it. And plus, I don't think Jon Jones should have a 5-round fight coming back from the long layoff. I just don't think that should happen.
Against Gus. Ooh.
Yeah. Against Gus, who was clearly a tough matchup for him. But I think that's the fight that makes sense. I'd love to see the rematch. It basically makes sense in terms of whoever wins can go into a certain direction. I like it. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that fight makes the most sense, and I agree with you. He needs to get a few more fights under his belt before they throw a title at him. It's like he's on like borrowed. All the allowances he's been given, you know, this is really the third time this has happened, because he had the crazy pregnant, you know, car wreck kind of thing. That's why DC got the title in the first place when he fought Johnson the first time. And then he had the first USADA thing at, UFC 200. And then he had the second one at 214. So we're now looking at 3 instances where he's royally fucked up. You know, even if it wasn't his fault and he really did take a tainted supplement, he's still really fucked up, because even in this last one, he didn't have the smoking gun of saying, this is the supplement I took. Here's the manufacturer. They said they were legit, and they gave me something that was tainted because they made it in the same, you know, kind of refinery, or they mix it in the same reservoir. None of that. Zero evidence. So he's already on kind of this borrowed allowance of like, if you fuck up again, you're probably done. You're probably going to the B leagues, and you'll probably go down as the guy that should have been the best, but, you know, got in your own way. So I think if he messes up even, you know, minorly with USADA again, I think he's gone. And for that reason, I think the UFC should be reluctant to give him even an interim title fight. I think they should wait. Absolutely. Get 2 or 3 more fights. Boom, you're back into it. Maybe even just one, but, you know.
Yeah. Tyron 170-pound Goat Woodley, that's the username. That's not me proclaiming anything, but it's the username. Said, Jason and Robert, what do you think would be next for Tyron after he smashes Colby?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be partisan here or come off like a Woodley fanboy. Actually, in my videos, I've gone after Woodley quite a bit. I think Woodley is going to smash Covington. I fully agree on that. So just kind of looking at the rankings here, let's pull this up. So who do we got? RDA? Nope. Stephen Thompson? Nope. Robbie Lawler? Already, you know, these are guys that he's already beaten in Stephen Thompson and Robbie Lawler. Kamaru Usman is very interesting. Kamaru Usman, the question is he a stronger wrestler? I don't think he's stronger on the feet. So it would really have to turn into, I mean, basically like what we saw in the Maia fight. It would be kind of boring. I think that's what we would see. I don't think we would see him doing any kind of work to him. To answer your question, I don't think anybody has anything for him except for GSP. GSP is the one person that I think that could come back. And actually, I would have Tyron Woodley in that fight because we saw what happened. And, dude, if you go back and watch the Johnny Hendricks fight, everybody thought GSP lost that. Like, there's a bit of like revisionist history when people watch that back because they're like, GSP's a legend. Of course he won. But no, I'm serious. Look up the news reports. Look up the reactions. Everybody was saying that Johnny Hendricks got robbed. Everybody. Fans, fighters, analysts, everybody thought he got robbed. Dana White at the press conference. News reports there's it was like fightodds.com or I can't remember what it was. I almost included in one of my videos, but I was like, you know what, this is maybe a bit too explosive to throw in there, so I just ended up taking that out. But it was like 17 out of the 17 reporters that were aggravated, this is MMA Fighting, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, all thought GSP lost that fight. All of them did. And so I think that when you're looking at what Johnny Hendricks was able to do as this extremely strong, extremely strong in terms of like punching power. And, you know, you can say whatever you want about USADA. It doesn't matter. Woodley doesn't have those problems. And Woodley has all those attributes that Johnny Hendricks has. So the question is GSP, does he have a strategy that can come against that same archetype again, that archetype fighter, a very strong wrestler who can knock you out? And weighing those things together, I think he's got the advantages on paper against GSP. And GSP is only getting older. Yeah. That's just the fact of it. And so Woodley's like 36. So, I mean, it's not like he's super young, but he's not showing any signs of degradation, and he didn't have 3 years off, you know?
Yeah. We're about 6 minutes now away from the press conference, and people are getting excited. People asking for links. If somebody wants to post a link, I don't care. It's the official press conference. I don't mind. Somebody can post it in there. If you can, I'm not sure if they get blocked, but
it's just the UFC's page.
You just go to the UFC's page. It'll be live there in a few minutes, and that's when we're going to finish. So no, we're not going to show the press conference here. We're going to finish up once the presser starts. But my take on the Woodley thing. Just one thing that's interesting, went onto the rankings just to have a quick look, and Covington is still the interim champion according to the rankings, which is mad. I don't know who he fights. Probably Usman, but I do agree with everything you said. I don't know who he fights. I really don't. Probably Usman. I would
ideally like to see Usman get one more win, but
I assume
everyone above him's on a loss though.
Yeah, you'd have to assume though that if Covington and Tyron fight, then Usman will probably fight in the interim there. So if he gets a win, then I guess that's the one. There was a question about me and you fighting for some reason. Who would win between me and you? Don't know if you've seen that. Not going to answer. Everybody else in the chat can answer who they think would win. How tall are you, Jason?
6 even.
So you have you have probably an inch or two.
Yeah. I know how to punch. No, you would probably smoke me. I think you actually train, so
I train.
I don't. I'm just a fan of the sport. I don't give a shit about fighting.
Yeah, I don't want to fight you. You're a nice guy.
I'm a good dude. Yeah. I like to party.
Yeah,
rarely, very rarely. As we said, I hardly drink.
Yeah. The Tyron Woodley 170-pound goat said, 185 move for Tyron Woodley.
185. I mean, you could argue if he gets through Colby and he gets through Usman, and GSP doesn't want that fight, that he's cleared out his division, unless somebody just storms through the division in the next year, which we've seen happen. Cody Garbrandt wasn't even ranked before he fought Dominic Cruz and smoked Cruz. I mean, that was one of the most impressive displays I've ever seen. Cruz is one of my favorite fighters. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Something could definitely happen. But if he gets through both of them, 185, as long as he's up to it, I mean, he'll probably be 37 or 38 by the time he gets through both of those guys, depending on how much he spreads out these next two fights. But assuming he wins those, which I think he will, 185 would make a lot of sense. And I think that he has a stylistic matchup that's really a lot of trouble for the current champion, imagining Whitaker still holds on to it. But, I mean, Whitaker's got some amazing takedown defense, and he's got some real good punching power. But so does Woodley. He's got some amazing punching power, and he also has that if he can get him to the ground and taking him down. So that would be a fantastic matchup if Whitaker's still around then.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Tyron Woodley having one or two fights up in weight. It is interesting it'd be interesting to see how long he has now. Like he's not old, but he's old in terms of the whole division. Were you laughing at Chris J saying Jason by twist his balls?
I'm loving these comments today.
Yeah.
These comments are fire today.
They are fire. There was another question about another move. Will Till move up to 185 pounds? I think he will personally, and I think it makes sense.
Well, the weird thing is his weight cut was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
And he talks about how easy it was. He said it took him about an hour and a half. Like, no joke. He said he ran for about an hour, and he said he did just some, like, he ran on a treadmill for about an hour, and then he did about 20 minutes inside of the sauna, and he was done. He was drenched. Yeah. Like he was at 170.2, and so he went to sleep and woke up and just did that extra little bit of cut to get it down to 169, and he was good. And I think the one thing, it's the same thing that keeps people from retiring. It's that feeling of you almost got there. There's like the gambling complex. This is like a real thing. I feel like you almost got there is what keeps people gambling, like the people that have gambling addictions. Same thing happens in video games too. If you think about it, it's like, oh, I almost beat this boss. Let me play it again, or almost beat this guy online. This next one will be a good match, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, the gambling mentality.
Yeah, and I think it's this kind of thing that's happening to Woodley, because actually he said he wants to continue fighting there, and I feel like he feels like he has unfinished business, and he had such a good weight cut because he got hired a nutritionist, was at the Performance Institute, ate better than he ever has before, and did all the right things and worked really hard, and the weight cut was easy for him. I think that Woodley is fine at 170, actually, by conventional weight cutting standards. I'm not saying he's healthy. Yeah. I'm not saying anybody that's cutting to 170 is healthy. Yeah. But I'm saying he's on par with just about anybody else there, especially Woodley. I mean, we saw Woodley actually looked worse. His voice was hoarse if you heard him the day before the fight, and it was kind of an understated thing because all the focus was on Till. But I think he makes 170 okay.
Yeah, a question I always ask fighters, especially ones who cut a lot of weight. I asked Aljamain Sterling this week, and you can go back and check that after the press conference, I guess, because I guess you're not going to not watch the presser, but apparently it's starting, so we'll leave you now in a second. But I always ask them, how much would not cutting weight on fight week improve your game planning? You're thinking about the fight itself, and a lot of fighters do say that, yeah, if I wasn't cutting weight, I probably would be able to prepare for the fight a bit more on fight week. You're not going to be able to get better with your skills, but mentally you could probably get better instead of mentally thinking about your weight cut. So there's always that. Look at the presser's just about to start, so we'll leave it there. Thanks to everyone for jumping in on this chat. It's been really fun. Some great questions, some great comments, some funny comments, and if you can give this a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, because there's probably a lot of new people on here right now. And just know that we have a show on Tuesdays. The main show, we're in a studio. It's cool. We have fighters on sometimes. This week we had Aljamain Sterling and we had Jimmy Smith, the UFC commentator.
Yeah, that was great.
So it was a good show. And then we have the live chat, which Jason usually joins me on the live chat every Thursday pretty much at this time, as in 2 hours ago, I guess. But everybody, enjoy the press conference. Jason, if you have any plugs in terms of any new videos that I should be looking forward to very soon, because I am interested.
Well, we did have one that was demonetized today. We wanted it. We actually, it was like fighters that have committed the worst crimes or whatever. and we wanted to put murders, but we knew we would be demonetized, and we got demonetized anyway for the new title. So we're about to see if it was. We should have just gone with murders, but that's basically what it's about. It's kind of a darker thing that Tom went into. It's actually ridiculously fascinating. Yeah. But again, kind of like what you were saying, just to kind of parrot that. If you guys enjoyed the chat today, you guys like what we're doing, feel like more eyes should be on it. The only way that YouTube promotes this video or promotes this channel is by what you guys are doing and by liking and interacting. And it tells YouTube that people like the content. So that's the reason why you always hear that. I know it's annoying. It feels like every channel always says it, but it's a real thing. It really helps.
I hate saying it, but it is true. Like I hate asking people to do it because you feel dirty almost, but it does help. And it also helped me get a light. I don't know, you can see my lighting's a bit better. I do have actually a light on up there. So I look wonderful.
Beautiful. You look like Cody Garbrandt and Luke Thomas.
The weirdest combination in the world, but press conference is about to start. Everybody enjoy, and thanks for tuning in, and all the best.